we generally like it toward the end of our conversations to ask our guests for a tip or a war story. And you've got, I'm sure, a lot of fodder from your time working for Judge Hanks that you could consider. So what do you think?
So here's what I feel is probably the most universally helpful tip from a former federal law clerk. When we go back to being in the courthouse on a regular basis, I would like all practitioners to keep in mind that the federal courthouses are mic'd. You are always on a hot mic. Always, always, always. Please assume that everywhere except the restrooms, everybody can hear everything that you are saying. And the same is true when you are calling in for a telephone conference. It is not uncommon for judges to be holding telephone conferences with the audio being piped into the chamber's audio. So the law clerks, the staff, people are making copies and doing their office work while listening to the hearings that the judge is having on the telephone. And maybe the judge is in the courtroom and the courtroom's empty. Maybe the courtroom's not empty and the judge is having 10 other hearings that day. I heard a lot about people's vacation plans when they were on hold, whose kid was in the school play, just a lot of chit chat. And it was most of it was just people talking, and it was fine. And we just sort of turned the volume down until it was time for the hearing to start. But sometimes I think people might have chosen their topics of discussion or their phrasing slightly differently if they'd known that their conversation was being mic'd in to, 50 different people while they were waiting for some sort of other docket matter, and they had an entire federal courtroom listening to their stories about fly fishing in Montana. And
that's a great tip.
That is a great tip. And that's one that, doesn't really occur to me. So I'm glad you bring that up.
Yeah. And I think the same is true in the state court, appellate court courtrooms, and maybe even the trial courts. Maybe the rule of thumb ought to be, if you see a microphone, don't say anything you shouldn't.
That's right.
Right. Just don't say anything at all. Right. Like yeah. You should always assume, just like on Zoom. I think this is great training for us, great reminders for when we go back in person. If you are anywhere near a courthouse or talking on the phone to a courthouse, you should assume that everybody can hear you and hear what you're saying. Not just the judge, literally everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a great place to wrap up, I think.
It is.